gentlemen, welcome to Late Night with Denny Cool. I got a lot to talk about this evening, a lot of stuff to go over, and later on, if anybody joins me live on the chat, great. I will be opening up the phone line. I did email it to the members, so I will let everybody know when that happens, if anybody's interested in calling. If not, that's fine too. But again, I like to discuss things, go over some great, meaningful, and fun topics. Try to have some good conversation, right? I think that conversation is key, and I think that that's missing. That's in my opinion. I think that today, hardly anybody really talks. And if they do, it's a lot of times it's so opinionated sometimes that it's very difficult to really focus in and hone in on one opinion as opposed to somebody else's, or have any type of an agreement. But tonight's main topic, well, there's several. But one of them I found very interesting. One of them is dealing with anger, how to control your anger, which I found very fascinating when I was doing the research on this. So I hope that you like it, and I hope that you chat. And again, when I open up the phone lines, I will announce it, so I hope that you can call in if you want. Hey there, Connie. Yeah, nice to have you. Are you stopping in for a while? All right, well, I appreciate that. Literally just kicked the show off. I was opening up with my monologue, and it's really cool because, well, first off, let me start off by saying this. Has anybody ever had a night or a day that, it's going well, right? Speaking about anger, but this was self-anger. We go out last night after the show. We haven't been out in a while, so I figured it'd be nice just to kind of get out of the house, So I take my wife out, and the place we went was about 20 minutes away, so it wasn't that far. But we're driving on the road. On the way there, my truck, she starts winding up, meaning it's in drive or on the highway. RPMs just start winding on me, which typically means it's no longer engaged. And so I'm like, what's going on? Now, I knew over the summer I had a problem with the transmission coolant. They actually have, some trucks come with a little it's like a little radiator that hooks up to your tranny line, and it keeps the temperature cool. I think it's a waste. You don't really need it. So that was leaking. So we took that off, and I just went direct line into the transmission. So I bypassed it, ripped it right off the truck. Been running great all winter. But what I didn't realize is through all the salt, the snow, and everything else, putting it in four-wheel drive, just beating the bag out of the transmission, on our way up there, well, I was basically out of transmission fluid because it'd been leaking out slowly through the winter. So after we left, I said, well, you know what, we're here, so let's go inside and enjoy ourselves. Spent a couple hours, came back out. Thankfully, I carry tools with me in this particular truck, and so I had to get out on the ground, go underneath, pitch black in the parking lot, freezing, had my lights, grab my tools. I take the lines off, retighten them up, all this stuff. I actually added power steering fluid. I didn't have any AT fluid with me at the time, so I put some power steering fluid in there to get me to a place that hopefully was open. This was by, say, about 1:45 in the morning, actually, is when we left. So we did find a place. I put about 2 quarts in. Still doing the same thing. I'm like, this thing has to be slipping. Lo and behold, we couldn't take the highway home, so we had to go all the way back roads, which took us, we got home about 4:45 in the morning, maybe 4:30, give or take, but several hours, because I couldn't go fast. 30, 35 miles an hour tops is what I could do. And I was so mad at myself because I was like, why didn't I keep an eye on this? Because I, absent-minded, I just let it slip, thinking that I fixed it, but I really didn't, right? I just bypassed it, band-aided up, and then it wasn't giving any problems, and so therefore it just slipped my mind. But throughout the winter, again, through the ice, the cold, and everything else, it just gave way. So now my truck, the pickup, is it can drive, but I have to drive it in a lower gear. It's got first, second, third, and fourth. It's an automatic. Most vehicles have that. So I can drive it locally, but I just can't hit a certain speed, or else, you know, your RPMs rev up. So I was so angry at myself. I'm like, this, to be blunt, this sucks. If it happens in the summer, it's not that bad. But the wintertime is the worst because you can't really do anything. And it's so cold, you can't work outside, right? So that was our night. But regardless, despite all that, we still had fun, had a good time, enjoyed ourselves. And I chalked it up to, well, I got to put my other truck back on the road. But the funny thing about my other truck, my Tahoe, is during the winter, I took it off the road. I didn't want to keep 3 vehicles insured. I was only driving 1. So I took that off the road. But when I was backing it up, in the wintertime, you lose air because the cold, it decompresses, right? That's why they always tell you to kind of keep your pressure a little bit higher in the wintertime because you will lose air. So when I was backing my the Tahoe up, now that's a big SUV. The tires were flat. I didn't check. So as I'm backing up, both of my front tires rolled off my rims. So the bead came off of the rims. So now that's sitting in my driveway. So tomorrow, I've got to take the rims and tires off, go down to my buddy's house, hopefully rebeat it, put the tires back on, put that truck back on the road. So that's kind of been my weekend. But it is what it is, right? I can't stress over it. But I was angry with myself because I allowed that to happen, and I should have been proactive and had all this stuff done prior when it happened, but I didn't. So I have nobody to blame but myself. So good lesson. When you run into something like that, don't procrastinate. Do it because it's going to kick in the ass down the road. Oh, look at this. We have Judy. Hi, Judy. Hey, thanks for joining. Wander. And, of course, Connie. Welcome, ladies. We're just a ladies' night out. I do. Well, we have 3 vehicles, right? So my wife has a Jeep, which, well, I didn't tell you this. So before all this happened to both of my trucks, they're work trucks, right? So they get beat up on. But my wife's Jeep, she's had it for a while, but she goes to get it inspected. All 4 of her tires, they need to be replaced. Her exhaust. This is New England. You know, if you have snow and ice and everything else and the salt. Let me see, what else was it? Oh, yeah, her front plate. I took it off her front bumper because last summer I did body work on it and I redid the whole thing, repainted it and all that stuff. So I took the front plate off but never bothered to mount it back on the front bumper, so it's just kind of sticking in the windshield on the dash. Long story short, she goes to get it inspected. He goes, I'll overlook that stuff. He goes, but it's not showing up in the registry for some reason. Now it is registered, it's fully insured and all that, but for whatever reason it's not pulling up, so the guy couldn't put a sticker on it. So that started the weekend. And then of course the trucks. But again, there's only so much you can do, stress and worry about, because you can't sit there and dwell on it. You can't fix it over the weekend. Nothing's open, right? So you do what you can, and then you wait, and then, you know, you attack it on a day that you can do it. Worst case scenario, you know, her Jeep's still fine. You can drive. Nothing wrong with it. Just doesn't have an inspection sticker. My inspection sticker on my truck's 2 years old. I just never had it inspected. You know, I don't really need to have the emissions done on it because it's over 15 years old. It's an older pickup truck. But the Chevys, they run great. No rot on my trucks. Strong vehicles. You know, so yeah, that was my experience over the weekend. It is always something. It seems like that. Judy says, Denny, you need to up your game on your wheels, man. Yeah, you know, well, here's the thing. I'm not a payment type of guy. I don't like car payments. So all of our vehicles are paid off, and I want to keep it that way. And buying used, you're getting somebody else's problem, which I don't like. These vehicles, with the exception of my pickup truck, we bought, you know, obviously did the financing. My Tahoe was leased, but we paid them off. And once the payments were done, I said, that's it. I don't want any more payments. Because I don't like being tied into a contract where if something happens, you know, I don't know, you could get sick or hurt, anything happens. Now you're tied into this payment. You're indebted to the bank or whatever it is, right, for this payment. And now if you can't make that payment or whatever it is due to any other reason, you know, you're screwed, right? So I like to own things, and then if I want to sell it, what I'm thinking about doing is taking both of my trucks and her Jeep, I think probably one of my trucks and her Jeep, trading both of those in, getting her something brand new. And they'll probably give me, for my Tahoe and her Jeep, about $15,000, give or take. So that will go towards a newer vehicle for her. I don't mind driving the pickup truck and stuff. I don't mind it. You know, it's great for me. It's got utility bodies on it and everything, so it works for me, and I don't mind that. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is get her something newer. I don't want it brand new. I don't like those new cars, but I'm going to get her something a little bit better than what she has. She likes the Jeeps. They're great. I mean, listen, that thing has been insanely reliable. It's great in the snow. You know, I've had Jeeps years ago. It's all I had was Jeeps. So, but to get a brand new one off the line, nah, I'm all set. Yeah, that's tough. Wonder, you said, so angry I could not even drive. Had to call a neighbor so I could calm down before driving. Oh, the day you went for an angry nosedive after 5, but you had calmed down and you feel better. Oh, you're decompressing. Oh. Decompressing is good. I recommend decompression. Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that. That actually refers to road rage, right? And not specific to that, but meaning I see it all the time. And I am, versus many other people I know, I am like this calm, cool, relaxed driver. Never had an accident in my entire life. My driving record is an A+. Not one. Never had an accident in my life. Not because I'm better than anybody else. It's just, I don't know, I've never had one. But I don't overextend myself, meaning, in other words, a lot of people, they'll try to cut people off or get ahead, or they're in a rush or whatever. I'm not like that. Or they get so angry because somebody does cut them off, right? Or they're sitting in a traffic light and they're in a rush, and so they accelerate. I've seen it over and over again. My wife had, we had a, I had a Jaguar, she got in an accident with that. Thankfully, that thing was made of steel. It's the old style Jag with the Jag emblem on it. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful car. Problem with that thing, though, it had this harness under the hood that it was the brains of the entire car. And so one little thing went wrong with that thing. It was just insane. But that was an awesome car. And that Jaguar, it had all-wheel drive. But man, what a sexy car that thing was. But then after that, I had, what else did I have? Had another vehicle. Oh, yeah, the Lincoln Aviator. She got in an accident with that. Jeep. She got in an accident with that. Another vehicle. It's not that she doesn't know how to drive it. She's a bad driver. It's just my wife sometimes has road rage or she's in a rush. And that sometimes can create problems. No, it's not road rage per se. Right, that's my point. Is when people generally they are maybe angry about something or something's bothering them and they take that emotion with them when they're driving. I mean, if something happens, you're angry and you get behind the wheel, right? It's considered road rage, not specifically, but that's what they mean by that. But there are people, I wonder, that do drive aggressively specific to road rage, meaning when they drive, they're just angry drivers. They just are like vengeful people. Was that Wendy's? I'm trying to, let me see. You said, Wanda, you refuse any more in your life to be made an ass out of. And, oh, over a cheeseburger? What? Wait a minute, back up. Hold on. This was all about a cheeseburger, Wanda? Okay, you gotta explain that to me. Judy, I'm on the same question here. I want to know what happened over a cheeseburger. So somebody got pissed at you over a cheeseburger. Did it have pickles or anything on it? I mean, not that it matters, but I just want to know if it had pickles. Because that, I mean, that would make a difference if it had pickles on it. You know, then I could see somebody getting upset over that. Okay, so did you order a cheeseburger or somebody else ordered a cheeseburger? It had to be more than a cheeseburger. Yeah, but here's the thing though, Connie. I want to know, like, what was it over? I mean, a cheeseburger. Yes, okay. So Wanda says she ordered a cheeseburger. Okay. So I'm going to assume that you ordered a cheeseburger, the order was not right, and the people that were making your cheeseburger were ignorant, rude, or something on those lines, right? That's what I'm guessing here. I don't know. You ordered a plain cheeseburger. Ah, okay, now we're getting somewhere. She puts the and, ... Yeah. Wanda, you should call in on the phone line about the cheeseburger. I want to hear this. I need to know about this cheeseburger. I would love to hear that cheeseburger story. Yeah, my phone line's open, so I mean, definitely call in about the cheeseburger. I've had experiences like that, though, too, where you order something and they put I was right. Okay, so they did put pickles on it, and I was joking when I said that, but really not, because I've been there when that happens to people. I've actually been there. My wife is the same way. She orders something and it's wrong. I want to leave wherever we are. Because for me, I'm not confrontational in that way unless they are just intentionally ignorant, right? Then that becomes a different story. But I beat them up with words. My wife does that too, but she's more aggressive. I'm more methodical about it. So you waited almost 10 minutes. He said, sorry, I will fix it. Then you waited 10 minutes, Wanda said. Then he gave you another cheeseburger. Then you went back to your car. I'm reading this, guys, as Wanda is typing it. Then Wanda says she opened it. And let me guess, it wasn't right. Again. Oh, this is good. I like starting off a show like this. The angry cheeseburger. Yeah, see, Wanda, when you have a juicy story like this, you got to call in because it just makes it that much better. They gave me... Okay, so after all this time, your first order, you said no pickles. They gave you pickles. He said he'll fix it. Apologized. Okay, fair enough. You wait about 10 minutes. You go back to your car. You open it up. This is the second cheeseburger. They gave you a cold cheeseburger with all the crap on it. Again, but this time it was... So not only did they give you everything on it that you didn't want, but they gave it to you cold. Now, was it... I have the same question as Connie. So at the time, was it you that got angry over the cheeseburger? Wanda says the bread was even kind of hard on top. See, so Wanda says she got angry over the cheeseburger. Okay, now it's making sense. Okay, so I can relate to that, and I understand. For many people, I would have to say it's justifiable to a lot of people, and I'll tell you why that is. People look at things differently, and when it comes to your food, right, it's almost something that is like it's personal. When you order something, in Wanda's case, she ordered the cheeseburger a specific way. This is how she wanted it. So, at first, the server or whoever apologizes, right? So they did the right thing, but then she waits. Now 10 minutes, whatever it is. So maybe she's in a rush, maybe she has to be at work, whatever it is. So she gets it, walks all the way back to her car, okay? Anxious to have whatever it is she ordered. She opens it. Not only was everything on there that she didn't want, but now it's cold, it's hard, right? So it becomes a personal thing to you because your food, it's almost like your private space, right? It's like you go, you eat your food, you want to enjoy something that you're looking forward to. And it's almost as if somebody is taking that away from you, right? Like, I know it sounds weird, but this is how minds operate. So you order something, you want it a specific way. I don't care if it's a 50-cent item or a $50 item. You know, when it's done to you once, you can understand mistakes happen. But when it's done to you again, but on top of that, you get it, but not only is everything wrong, but it's cold, it's hard. What happens is our minds instantly go into that mode of distrust. Now you think to yourself, they did something to it. Now they intentionally messed up my food. They messed up my order. So it becomes personal to you. And that's what happens. I know it sounds weird, but I'm telling you, I've done a lot of research on this, how our minds work. And not everybody does, but for a lot of people, they do. It becomes personal. So when it's your food, it's almost like they're intentionally doing that because one would think that, okay, well, you knew what I ordered the first time. It was a mistake. And then you gave it to me again, but now it's worse than the first time. And on top of that, you add insult to injury because it's cold, it's hard. Now you're wasting my time. So now you've just wasted, say, 20 minutes for something so simple. This is what you're thinking. And now I feel it's intentional, right? Now, this wasn't done by accident anymore. And that's what you think. And so that's why people go into these fits of rages over that stuff. It may sound simplistic to other people, but for some, they take that very serious. Judy says she was a manager at A&W for 8 years. Nothing surprises her. She had a guy throw a burger. Some guy threw a burger at her cashier and hit her in the head. Even Wanda says they had her wait to make her think. Oh, okay. See, there's more to it, Wanda. So they had her wait to make her think that they were making her a new one, and it wasn't. So what they did, according to you, is that they just gave you an old burger. Yeah. Now, I've been there. I've had that stuff happen to me, right? You know, years ago, I probably wasn't as calm, I don't think. I was always patient. I've always been a patient person. But my fuse when I was younger was very, very quick, right? I was very defensive. And a lot of it was the people I was associating with, too, back then. They were just quick fuse people, you know, so it kind of rubbed off on me. And growing up as a kid, I was a scrapper, always in fights. So I'd say in my mid-20s, I kind of was getting out of it, but I still had a temper. And I had some experiences with food where I literally took plates of food and just chucked them against the wall inside of a restaurant. You know, I was just angry, right? And back then, when I was younger, I was a hypochondriac. If I felt as if somebody touched my fork or put their finger on the rim of my glass, I wouldn't eat it, I wouldn't drink it, nothing. But I can understand that. But I'm sure it was serious because here's the thing. There are a lot of people that are triggered by many different things. Do you ever hear that expression like trigger objects, right? Well, there are certain things that some people are more apt to get upset over than others. And the people that are probably less likely to get upset will look at those people that do and say, I don't understand. It was just this, right? But then you have to think about it in this way. It's like looking at somebody who has an addiction to something, okay? And you may not. You may have no addictions. Some have addictions to coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, whatever it is. However, you don't have that. So you look at somebody who does, and you don't understand why that person, why they can't just stop or quit, right? They may have an addictive personality, as they say, but they may have more difficulty with whatever it is that they're drawn to, right, that they're addicted to. But you may not, and it may be easier for you to do something and stop as opposed it is to somebody else. And that's kind of how it works with anger, too, and the things that happen. Some people just take it more personally. It doesn't mean they're wrong. You know, it's a very slippery slope because a lot of people will easily point fingers and not understand what at the time that person is going through. And it could be a plethora of things. Somebody could have just dealt with a sickness, a death in the family, whatever it is. And for that little thing to happen in somebody else's mind, it could have triggered them, right? And of course, what you don't know is the other side's attitude. Were they pleasant about it? How did they react? What was their attitude? So you get all those little working things going on. And Connie says she personally would handle something like that by first asking to speak to the manager. If that didn't work, then, she says, I would write off the burger and write a bad review in the restaurant. Some people do that. Wanda then says, the guy tossed it in a bag, tossed it at me, and then I was respectful. She says she tried calling corporate and was put on hold for 32 minutes. Yeah, that's aggravating. She says she made her point to them and anyone in there and left after I tossed the old cold burger back at them. You know, listen, Wanda, I laugh with you because I understand the frustration of that. It's disrespectful, unprofessional for any business or employee to be doing that, right? There are ways for them to handle certain situations. And again, unless you're there and you had to deal with it yourself, you know, maybe somebody would have done something different. And I'm laughing with you because I wonder, I've been in restaurants with my wife, and there's probably one or two that I can safely take her to that I know I won't get embarrassed. She's very in tune with how food is cooked, if it's warmed up, if it's reheated, if it was frozen, she knows all that stuff. And so when something is served and she feels the plate and the plate's steaming hot, but the food is lukewarm, she'll kindly at first ask them, can you please tell them to make me a new dish? And the server will be like, well, why? What's wrong? And she goes, did you feel how hot this plate is? She goes, this was done by a microwave. I don't want this. And then she'll cut open the meat. At the time, it was a prime rib. And it was tough. I mean, it was overcooked. So she kindly says, you know what? I don't want it. I'm all set. And they would try offering her a different dish. And she says, okay, I'll have a salad. Well, they bring her the salad. Now, the salad was the salad was soggy. It was all watered down. And she basically, you know, freaked out on him. And I'm just kind of scrunching down in my chair as like, okay, really? Do you have to make that big of a deal? And she goes, yeah, I do. She goes, because they should know better. It's unprofessional. She goes, and if they do that, she goes, what else do they do? So I can't argue with how she feels. The one thing that I think is important is, for me, I never get upset at how people feel because it's their feeling, it's their emotion, right? And so I always think that a lot of times when people do things based off of emotion, based off of feeling, you got to kind of sit back and maybe put yourself in a situation where it's been your worst day or something traumatic has just happened to you. And then maybe put yourself in their shoes. Maybe that happened to them. Now, if they're like that all the time, that's one thing. But I always try to do that, to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, because you never know why that person is reacting to something the way they do. Yes, I do know your backstory, Wanda. Yeah, no, and the last episode, yes, absolutely. Yeah, you know, you laid silent for 40 years, Wanda. You know, you were kind of passive. You explained all of that. And, you know, it's good to express yourself. And I think, to Wanda's point, right, is that after a while, in Wanda's case, 40 years is a long time. And I think what happens, I mean, again, I'm no expert here, but I think what happens to people after a while is that whether it's relationship, whether it's just growing up, right, whatever their environment or their surrounding is, what I find is that it affects you long after, right? So once you're able to break away from that bad situation, once you're able to free yourself, and then you start to normalize things, meaning you're out of that toxic relationship, or you're out of that toxic environment, believe it or not, it doesn't just go away, right? It's kind of like putting stain on a piece of wood. It's going to take a while for it to fade out. Maybe you got to sand it, and that sanding has to do with self-meditation, maybe some therapy, talking, whatever. But you get the analogy. So a lot of times it stains who you are for a while, and it becomes almost a lot of things that happen become very sensitive to you. And then what people do is they react. They react because for all these years they couldn't, but now they can. And what they do is they put up a defense where they're no longer going to allow themselves to get hurt, or for anybody else to make them feel like they're less important, right? Or that they're nothing, And so I understand that level of thinking. A lot of people don't, unfortunately. And that's why I said a lot of times you have to kind of just think maybe that person just went through a traumatic thing, or maybe there's something going on in their life. And again, if they're if you know these people and they're generally just idiots, like every day, okay, well then there's no excuse for them. They're just who they are. That's their personality. But if you don't know somebody, and they're reacting, just my best opinion is just kind of, maybe just having a bad day, But I don't blame you on that, though. I really don't, because that honestly, that would aggravate me. That really would. Nah, you exploded, Wanda, but to you it wasn't nonsense, right? To you, it hit a nerve. To you, it kind of felt like a repetition of something old, So it was bringing up some toxic memories, toxic feelings, and that happens. That's why, people, heck, my stepdad, for instance, he's retired now. He was a builder. He built all the houses they live in, him and my mom. But he was in Vietnam and suffers from PTSD. Ooh, that was my neck. Y'all hear that? That's some good cracking. So he suffers from PTSD, like many people who went through some traumatic experiences. You don't have to be in a war zone to suffer from PTSD. But there are things, now he's been out of Vietnam for years, obviously, but to this day, he's in his 70s. He still gets triggered, and now he's depressed. I mean, he's not working anymore, and he just lays around the house, does nothing, right? But he just certain things, man, just trigger him, and he goes off. So it's understandable. Yeah. Wanda, it's nice that you're open and honest about that. Wanda said, she goes, it will be with her for a long time. She says, still crap from her childhood. Now, I can relate to that, but she has faith, and she truly prayed about this today and asked God for forgiveness for her language. I wish my wife would do that, Wanda. And actions. And, you know, what Wanda said, not just about the praying and about asking for forgiveness. If I were a PR professional, what I take away from that is when somebody can honestly and openly admit to themselves that they make mistakes, here's their errors, they're trying to change their ways, you know, no matter what it is, whether it's through faith, right? But the key takeaway from that stuff is what I love, is that it's the honesty of you recognizing that we all have flaws, but some are more deep rooted than others. And so when you recognize that, right, that I think, in my opinion, is like one of the major steps to getting better. I mean, again, I could be wrong, guys. I don't know. But that's what got me to this content tonight, Wanda, Judy, and Connie, was what I experienced this weekend over the weekend. The show was great. I had a great time last night, man. Everybody was just amazing. So I was feeling good. I even messaged Judy, and I said, hey, I'm going to go out for a little bit. I said, I'm going to take Dawn out, you know, and go out and stuff. We haven't been out in a while, right? So I was feeling good. And then all that anger, and it was something so stupid because I neglected to take care of something that I should have, right? And as minute as it sounds, I was pissed. I was so angry. And then I thought, you know, why not do a show about that, like about emotions, about anger and stuff like that? So I pulled up some of my research and content and stuff. I'm like, yeah, because I noticed a lot of people, they're just juiced up on aggression, and it may not be intentional. Some of it's self-inflicted. However, I think a lot of it has to do with outside influence, and I'll get to that. You see, Connie says you are on the right track, praying for God to help you forgive. Forgiveness is for you, not the other person. Connie, well said. I'll drink to that. Forgiveness is. I did a while back. I did a talk on forgiveness. You'd be amazed how many people think they know what forgiveness is all about. And when asked, it was remarkable because their idea of forgiveness, if you're gonna base it scripturally, was way off. I mean, just way off the mark. But you can't judge somebody for what they don't know or for what they don't feel in their heart and or for what they haven't been taught, right? It's a learned experience, something, whether it's generational, their parents or whatever, or unless later in life they learn it because they want to or they feel it, right? So, but it was interesting to hear their opinions and viewpoints. And again, this is how they feel, so you can't get mad at somebody for how they feel. But I just found it interesting as to what a lot of people felt as if forgiveness was, you know. But you never know. That's the thing. That's why I always say you can't judge somebody's heart condition. Nobody can. Yeah, anger is, Wanda, anger is very popular, but not for the good thing, right? It's popular for the bad reasons. As a matter of fact, read you some articles here, or I'll, kind of glance over it. All right. But it says, what should you know? It says, giving in to anger can damage your health. Now, that's a fact. I think everybody can shake their head yes to that, right? Research indicates that unmanaged anger not only increases your risk, you ready for it, of high blood pressure, but heart disease, depression, and digestive problems. Now, let me just stop right there. I talked about this a while back, right? That people who are resentful, they're angry, they can't let go of the past, and emotionally sometimes it's difficult, right? If you've experienced trauma, we literally just talked about that. But I'm talking about people who hold on to resentment, who just cannot forgive. They will, it's almost like they have a score to settle. And no matter how many answers they get, no matter how many I'm sorry's they get, it's not good. You did wrong by them. And I know so many people. He wronged me. And that's it. That's all it takes. He did me wrong and I'm done. Oh, I'm sorry. Last time I checked, you bleed. You're from dirt, from dust. You were formed, from dust you shall return. So if my brain serves me correctly, you're no different than I am. The difference is that the mistake was made towards you, because you've never made a mistake towards others. You never wronged anybody, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Point being is, they hold on to that. And throughout their life, you know what that does? It builds up. And then another thing happens. That builds up. So people walk around with this anger issue. And there's a constant reflection of who that person becomes, unless they learn how to let go. And that's where true forgiveness comes in. And for many, they can't. So it is detrimental to your health. It's it's probably one of the worst things. Negativity is so bad. It's so unhealthy. And it's not to say that we're not going to get upset. It's not to say that you can't be mad at somebody. And be upset for a couple days or whatever and stuff, and it will take you time to get over something that was done to you, depending on what that something is. But what you got to understand is this: whoever did that wrong towards you, guess what? They're going to bed at night. They may feel upset for a little while, but you're the one walking around with the anger. And in fact, you actually create this guilt on yourself because you allowed it to happen, because you should have known better. So then what you do is you blame yourself. You create this self-doubt. Then what happens when you get self-doubt? Well, you start losing confidence in yourself. When you start doing that, you start getting depressed. And when you start getting depressed, of course, you start getting angry. Why? Because you can't seem to get out of your own way. And this all stemmed from somebody doing wrong by you. Now, it could have been intentional, it could have been unintentional. Doesn't matter. They're not affected by it. You are. So the person that's holding that grudge, they're the only ones that is truly being affected by it. Unless the other person is truly remorseful. But if they are, and if what they did, it may not be forgivable in your eyes, but you know what? They're human. They made a mistake. And if it's hard for you to forgive right away, that's okay. You can talk to somebody about it. But if they're truly apologetic and heartfelt and, hey, listen, I'm so sorry, did not mean to do that to you. Maybe they are sincere about it and it was a complete accident. Whatever it was, there is nothing, in my opinion, that cannot be worked out by having a conversation. Your relationship may not be the same. You may lose respect. The friendship and trust may not be there as it once was. But the forgiveness, the benefit of forgiving is greater than the grudge you hold. And that benefit applies to you. Nobody else, but it applies to you. Judy, you say you work with people who love to try and get people worked up over the littlest things, and they feed off it. They do. Judy, you're 100% right. You and I were talking about this not too long ago on a personal conversation, or private conversation, rather. That's people like that, they love that. Because people that do that, there's something missing in their life. Now, whether they are in a relationship or not, or maybe they feel lonely, or they're not getting enough attention, whatever it is, I don't know. I don't judge. And again, I'm not a professional here, just a person who observes people very well and understands people very well. It's a curse, but it allows me to understand people and be empathetic more than most. So when somebody tries to do that, it's so tempting, isn't it though? It's kind of like hanging something in front of you that you know you probably just shouldn't eat. Maybe it's chocolate, I don't know. But the point being is you want to bite, right? And you want to get involved in it, because the way it's done, it's so deceiving that it's done in a way to almost make you feel as if you're part of something, that you're important as to what is going on at the time. But truthfully, you're not. You're just a sponge that is soaking you with drama, and so that this way, hey, you can feed back into the ego to make them feel good. Like, hey, I just accomplished something. I just talked a bunch of crap about somebody. Haha, feels good. No, it don't. You're an idiot, right? So don't feed into it. It is tempting. It's very tempting. Connie says the serenity prayer: accept what you can't change, change things you can change, gain wisdom to know the difference. Good point, Connie. Wander, you say, my pharmacy even lied right in front of me last week. She says it was about her medication she needed for her heart surgery next month, because she caught them in the lie with her insurance. Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. But they sure got it fixed in 8 minutes. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you definitely got to be stern for sure, because now that's messing with your health, right? Judy says when it comes to her, she just walks away and they know her by now. And see, well, that's a thing, right? It timed out, Wanda. But see, that's the thing, is that what Judy's saying, that's the thing you should do. I mean, again, you do what you want. You know, it's one's life. You can do what you want, but that's probably, I think, the right thing to do, is that to not get involved. And look, let me tell you this. It may seem interesting, and it may seem like, oh, this is great. I love gossip. And it may seem intriguing. The topic may be enlightening or interesting, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's damaging. Studies have shown that people that engage in gossip, negative conversation, or people in general who are negative, use more energy than people who focus on being positive. Imagine that. You would think it's the opposite, right? Because a lot of times it's a struggle to try and stay positive and focused. But no, it's not. It requires more energy from you. And it actually makes you sick to be negative than it does to focus on being positive. So this article goes on to say that anger has also been linked to, get this, insomnia, increased anxiety, skin problems, and stroke. For good reason, here's where it gets good. For good reason, the Bible says, let go of anger. Now, I'm not having a Bible class, but I am using reference here. As you guys all know, I rely on the scriptures throughout my life, my daily life and everything. So I am going to cite it. I think it's the most rational, reasonable, knowledgeable book ever written. And I believe in what the texts say. But what's interesting is a lot of it, despite what many say that it's fairy tales, it's guided wisdom. It's a instruction manual on life. Let go of anger and abandon rage. Do not become upset and turn to doing evil. Now you can look that up. That's Psalms 37:8. All right. But what's interesting about anger is suppressing anger can be very damaging too. I literally just said that. Anger that is allowed to fester, it can be like a disease that harms you from the inside. For example, you could develop a cynical or critical attitude. I literally just said that before I read this. Such a spirit would make you hard to live with and could seriously harm your marriage. I know we all have or had, whether it's a marriage or relationship, whether it been us or the other person, have that angry, cynical attitude, right? And it does affect one's relationship, whether it's marriage, and it could even be child, parent, brother, sister, whatever, right? But that does. It rubs off on people, especially in relationships, right? And so here it says what you can do. It says, look for your mates. Now, this is referring to marriage, obviously. But it says, look for your mate's good qualities. I'm not giving out marriage advice here, guys. I am reading. I stay away from that. Independent, yes. I will try to give my opinion, if it's worth anything or not. But I stay out of marriage stuff. Anyways, look for your mate's good qualities. List 3 things that you admire about your spouse. The next time you get angry at something he or she does, think about the qualities that you identified. And this may help you control your anger. Now, it's just sounds so practical, right? But it makes so much sense. It sounds so simple, but it makes so much sense. And you know what I like about this? Is that there's nothing like high tests about the language. Meaning, it's not written in ways that you have to literally break out a dictionary and say, what? Like, what do you mean by that? It's common language, right? It's for the average man to read. It's simplistic enough, so when you read it, you're like, oh, there. Okay. We, because of whether it be our lifestyles, whether it be events going on around us, whatever, no matter what, unless you live literally in a tunnel, even if you don't watch the news or whatever, which I recommend don't doing if you can't handle it, because it's going to be the same thing, just a different story. It hasn't changed in 50 years. It's not going to. If it's important, it'll find you. You don't go find it, it will find you. But my point is that when you look at that, what I just literally read, we don't think of it in terms of that. Why? Because we're too busy thinking of more complex ways. And to be honest with you, from a lot of stuff I've watched and read, today, a marriage agreement isn't a commitment. A marriage agreement for many people today, sadly enough, it's a contract. it's meant to be broken. Okay, you sign here, sign here, sign here. Well, he or she didn't abide by the contract. I'm getting a divorce. Okay, you don't get this. That's what it is. Not in all, but the majority. They look at it as a contract. They don't look at it as a long-term commitment anymore. So the marriage rate for people being married years and years, unfortunately, it's not there like it used to be. Connie says, being thankful about the good things we have and our blessings shifts the focus away from the negative things. She's absolutely right. When you look at the good things, and this is tough, I'm not going to lie to you, looking at good things, focusing on, let's use a pet, for example, something so minute that would mean nothing as far as worldly views go for what a good thing is or a blessing, right? But we're going to use that. You look at a pet, whether it's cat, dog, bird, and you look at how this pet is created, how it loves unconditionally, how this pet, it has a personality, right? It's playful, it's loving. And you look at how this creature exists and how it brings you joy to your life. Well, wouldn't you consider that to be a blessing? If something is bringing you joy to your life, that to me is a blessing. If something is bringing you sadness and anger, I don't really consider that a blessing. So to Connie's point, when you look at the small things and you can appreciate the little things in life, when you look around and you take away the big picture and you focus on the smaller one, what is it that you have in your life that you are thankful for? Yes, we will all say health and certain other things, right? Okay, that's a fact. But there are many other things too. I always say it, nobody goes to bed at night stressing and worrying about, is the sun going to shine tomorrow? I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, you know what? Man, I hope that sun shines tomorrow. You don't. Why don't you? Because we take it for granted. Not in a negative way, but we take it for granted because it was created specifically for a purpose. And, in my opinion and belief, the creator that created that didn't create it to burn out, just like the earth didn't create it to blow up and fold. It's not going to happen. So that is part of our design. We know that. We entrust that this was designed and made for the purpose of serving mankind and to benefit us. But we take it for granted in the sense that maybe we don't appreciate it because it's there all the time. Maybe we look at it, we feel the warmth, we feel the benefits of it, and some dangers for certain people, but we feel the benefits of it, and we don't appreciate it. And as stupid as that may sound, it's not, right? So you go from having a pet that brings you nothing but love and joy. There's one. The other one is something that's there all the time that we really don't appreciate. We may say we do, but that old saying, stop and smell the roses or stop and smell the flowers, whatever it is, that was actually done for that specific reason or said for that specific reason. And so I think that's important. That's a good point. Just step back and try to reel in on the positive things in your life. And then what I do personally, I'll share it with you guys. I have cue cards. I write things down. I'll leave a note for myself every couple of days. I'll write on a cue card, leave it on my monitor. But you can write down all these little positive things that are noticeable in your life that you can see. Add them up. And then look at it. It's a list. They don't have to be big things. But when you read that list, you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And so it kind of justifies, not makes it right, but kind of justifies, I had a crappy day, or I had a crappy week, or this year's not going so well. But here's what I still have. Judy says she does that with Jim, but when she gets upset over something, she tries to remember what she loves about him, and she finds that she gets over it quicker. He's a great guy. Jim is a great guy, and that showed, Judy, on your song last night, in your video. Right? That was so true in that video. And that's what I'm talking about. Is that when you do that stuff and you reflect and you look at your partner, just like what I read to you, you try to look at them and say, well, you didn't marry them. Yeah, maybe attraction physically helped. It probably didn't hurt, but that helped. But that wasn't why you married that person, right? There were many other reasons why you married that person. And I think as we go on, whether it be through struggles, different situations, I think we don't forget, but we just dismiss. Because like the sun that's always there shining, so isn't our spouse. They're always there. The difference is we just don't see them shining, right? We take it for granted. So sometimes we have to step back and appreciate that and look at the good qualities for them. And then it helps us, you know what? Okay, he's not such a dink after all. I love him for a reason, and here's why I do. And to remind yourself. So that's really awesome. I love that you do that. Speaking of Jim, Jim says, always surround yourself with positive thinking people. That's how Judy and I operate. That's an awesome point, Jim. Wanda says, now on a more blessing note, got a call and asked if I would consider singing at a large facility for the elderly, young and old alike, where my 102-year-old aunt lives. They have heard about my music, Wanda says. Okay, first of all, congratulations to your aunt, 102. That's insane, but that's awesome. Wow. And yeah, Wanda, that should be definitely an awesome feeling. I would soak that up all day long. That is just amazing. I would do that. That's awesome. I mean, and your aunt's 102. Like, that's double me. Wow. That is so cool. So you said you chose, Wanda, to look at the glass half full, not half empty. I like that. I love the feedback, guys. I love the comments. I said it before. A lot of people only know and are familiar with me from our Friday night shows, which is fine. And I've explained it to people. They're like, how can you have two different personalities? Well, I really don't. What I have is I have the fun and exciting childlike brain part of me that on a Friday night, it's a different setting, right? And so the Friday nights excite me. And it allows me to be that child like for 2 hours or sometimes 3, whatever, 2.5. But I just, like, I don't care whatever, how I sound or the way I'm talking, because I get to be that fun kid again. And for the Friday night music shows and the themes and all the stuff we do, it excites me when I see and listen to everybody sing and I watch the chats going 100 miles an hour up the screen, right? And then people are commenting and everybody's kind of picking on each other in a fun way, and it does something to you. It releases these endorphins that are different, so it triggers for me that excitement, right? So I just go with it and I have a good time. The Talk podcast, yeah, it's much different. This is typically how I am, but I'm very methodical. I think a lot, sometimes too much. And I'm very empathetic with people. Again, I said it's almost, in a way, it's almost a curse. I can literally tell how people are feeling a lot of times just by even how they chat, or just listening to somebody, right? I pick up on that. But I use it in a sense that where if I can help somebody feel a little bit better, or even if somebody just wants to yell, scream, and all that stuff, and I let them bend my ear, I'm okay with that too. Because if that helps somebody else, I'm all for that, you know? So I enjoy doing this. I love to do this. And I don't get to do it on Friday nights, and nor would I incorporate this type of discussion on Friday nights. Friday nights is about having fun, letting loose, kicking your shoes off, letting your hair down, and just being a kid. That's what it is for me. Let me see. Connie says, then you need to spend more time with your music if you can, Wanda. Judy says, the Friday night show is the best. Everyone is so positive. Love it. Yeah, Judy, that's what I'm saying. Friday night shows, it's so uplifting. It really is, because I've said it before. There's been many times where either I come home or I've been working on the show all week, whether it's designing graphics, doing the music, whatever, right? And it's no joke. I mean, Judy, you know, you do the emails now and stuff. It takes a while. For an average show, it takes me, if I collectively put my hours together, 7 hours, sometimes 8, a full day. So it takes a long time. And sometimes I, like everybody else, have bad days and I get discouraged, right? And sometimes I don't even want to do the show. But I push myself to do it, because when I get there and the show starts and I start seeing the chat, and they start off a little bit like kind of dripping in, like doop, doop, doop. And then they're going, toop, 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 and then they're just flying up on my end. And then I'm just watching the chats. And then when I feature the artist, I'm watching everybody comment and lift each other up and stuff. For some reason, that fun, positive energy, it fills me up and it excites me. Right? And so for me, that's what it's all about. The music is great, obviously, too, but for me, that's what I love doing. You know, Judy, that's so funny you say that, right? Judy, for those that aren't watching, that may be listening, Judy typed, she says, I find it so good when the show is over. I'm so happy, can't sleep, so hyped up. You know what? That happens to me, Judy, all the time. Every Friday night when the show's over, the one thing I look forward to doing, the first thing I look forward to doing, you may know, is getting my coffee, right? And so when I have my coffee, I try to, like, de-hype myself, if that's even a term. I think it may be, but whatever. I try to unwind, but my brain is just so filled with adrenaline and endorphins are flowing and it's all that excitement juice going on that it's so hard for me. Like, I can't just go right to bed. You know, I'll maybe kick on a show or watch something or work on something else, right, to try to relax myself. My brain is just on fire. So it takes me a good 2 hours before I even get to lay down and fall asleep. So it takes me a while. Connie says that Sing Snap can also be uplifting. The positive culture there brings you back. Yeah, well, Sing Snap, of course, absolutely. I unfortunately don't have time, though, you know, Connie, as much as I used to on Sing Snap. But you're right. And, well, I mean, what, 98% of you guys, myself included, all came from Sing Snap, right? And then from there, the majority of members now on DCG met on DCG. Some knew each other on Sing Snap. But me personally, there were a few that I knew on Sing Snap. And then there were several that I knew of. But then when they became a member, I got to know them. And so Sing Snap, definitely 100%. they have a lot to offer with their fun activities, themes, contests. They do stuff, right? But like anything else, and the same thing could happen with our show, but we don't let it, or we're very careful, and we try to redirect away from that. I can remember a while back when I was on SingSnap, I wanted to do this contest, and I was inquiring, okay, how do we do this contest, whatever. And so it was probably like the first year, I think, when I signed up, and it was an Elvis contest. I recorded a couple songs on SingSnap, and then some people reaching out and stuff, giving me comments and replies. And then I said, hey, how come you guys don't have like there's a ton of people on SingSnap, as you guys know, that sing Elvis, right? Some of them are actually maybe Elvis tribute artists. I know several that are. So I'm like, why don't we have a contest? This would be so cool. And then I got these emails bombarded with them. And then one person, I won't say who it was, but one person who's actually a member on our show on DCG, he emailed me and said, Denny, do yourself a favor. Don't do it. He said, because, a lot of people get upset. This is what happens. He said, kind of let the staff do that. If you want to do something, run it by them. So my point is, anything that has positivity there, that is good, that's uplifting, there's always that negative spin where others just try to come in and they just try to throw a wet blanket on stuff, right? So I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't a bad thing. I probably couldn't have pulled it off anyways. But the point being is, if you allow yourself to be dragged over to that side and get involved with that crap, then that positive experience no longer becomes negative. No longer becomes happy. And unfortunately, it affects everything else. And that becomes a negative experience. Jim says, Judy comes up after the show, and we put the show back on in bedroom, looking and listening to some of the highlights. Judy says, yes, that's how I try to unwind with Jim after the show. And she puts smiles. Wink, wink. She didn't say wink, wink. I just did that. It's great. I think that, everybody members who does the live chats, participates in it. And, of course, we have the Zoom. It's a great way for people, and we can say it, but we have people from around the world, right? Our members are spread out all over the globe. But what I love about it, matter of fact, I said to Judy, I messaged her the other night. I said, what's nice about, especially like when I listen to everybody talk and Zoom and all that stuff, even on the karaoke nights that Judy does on Thursday nights, it's maybe everybody sings 2 or 3 songs, but for the most part, everybody's joking, they're laughing, they're talking. And with the exception of a few, none of us have ever met. But they're carrying on as if like we knew each other for many years, kind of like we grew up together. You can't fake that. You cannot fake that stuff. I think it's just, that to me speaks volume. It really does. And it attests to the character of who the members are. And I love it. Oh, Judy says wink, wink, wink. Well, here's another cool thing. And guys, I love the comments. Keep them coming. It's awesome. It really is. It says, cultivate a forgiving attitude. First, try to see things from your spouse's viewpoint. This will help you. It doesn't have to be relevant to marriage, but this one here just happens to be talking about that. So for anybody listening, I'm not giving marital advice. I'm reading an article. It's actually taken from, let me see here, This is from the Watchtower. You can actually find this on jw.org. But I'm reading an article because it has to tie in with, forgiveness and anger and stuff. But anyways, first try to see things from your spouse's viewpoint. This will help you to develop empathy. I love that word. Again, we're going to refer to scriptural content. What the Bible calls fellow feelings. Next, you can find that in 1 Peter 3:8. But next, ask yourself, is the reason for my anger, now this is cool, right? Is the reason for my anger so serious that I cannot be forgiven? That's deep. Ask yourself, I'm going to repeat this, is the reason for my anger so serious that I cannot be forgiven? Sometimes it almost pains me to say that I literally just said that. I have not, full transparency, read any of this. Everything I said to you guys was stuff I'm just thinking of from my experience and reading and how I personally feel, and trying to just apply some common sense to it. So I've never, I may have read it years ago, I don't know, but I'm literally reading this for the first time to you guys tonight. Interesting. But if you want, you can look that up. 1 Peter 3:8, it says, finally, all of you have unity of mind, fellow feeling, brotherly affection, tender compassion, and humility. Okay? Nothing, as people say, religiously or over preaching about that. It's common sense. You don't have to always throw the religious aspect in there, right? It's common sense. It's based off of just common sense, respect, basic principles, fundamentals that unfortunately a lot of people just don't either have or they weren't taught for whatever reason in life. Several reasons, I think. I'm surprised. I wonder if Richard usually pops in. He might not be feeling well, though. He said he wasn't last night. I think he said he fell asleep. I don't know. Jim says, Denny is going from professor to dear happy. Jim, you know what's funny about that? Richard, was it Richard? Yeah, Wanda, it was Richard, right? The other show we did, I think it was Richard that said it. He came on. You remember, Wanda, who were we talking about? That radio host. She's on the tip of my tongue. You would call up, and she would give her experience. She was a relationship advisor, I think. And from what I understand, she based her experience off of the amount of relationships and or marriages that she's had. Delilah. I think she's still on, Richard said, but he goes, Denny is the female version of Delilah, minus the relationship advice. I don't give advice on relationships. Dual, I should say. And then I asked him, I said, would you know if she's like an actual expert, or is it based off of her relationships? And I think he said it's off of her relationships. Then I think my response was, well, if that is the case, I don't know how much I would value that. Not that it's not meaningful, but if you have enough information to base advice for others from all of your relationships failed, whether it's your fault or not, then that may want me to think about, well, were all of these relationships due to this situation, or maybe there's a little deflecting going on. Is there any reflecting? I don't know. But anyways, so that's what Richard was saying. I was laughing about that because Jim just said, "Dear Abby." Dear Dr. Laura. Jim, maybe. But there was a, I used to listen to her, not on relationship advice, but I used to like the music that she would pick for people, right? So somebody would call up and they would tell her what they were going through via their relationship, the problem. And it was mainly guys, believe it or not, that were calling her, all right? And she would give them advice on what they should do. I never got into that. I just, because based off of what they were saying, if it was me and if I were to do that, I would need to hear the other side. Because I think to have a biased feedback like that, I would want to hear something unbiased, right? Because by definition, that's being biased. So I would have to hear both, right? And so in order for me to be able to do that. But if that's the case, you know, if somebody's giving advice based off of the amount of failed relationships that they've had, I don't know how much structure there is to that. But that's just me. I could be wrong. Wanda says, "Oh, Wanda, you are going. You're going to H. I don't know if that's bed or home." Wanda says. I don't know. She says she's sorry, but I'm going to go to H. Jim, good point. Jim says, "True, there are 3 sides to every story. His, hers, and the truth." Yeah, well, you're not wrong. It's kind of like somebody saying, see what they, all right, have you guys ever heard, and I'm going to get back into the actual content I started discussing, but I have to say this because Jim just brought something up. Do you hear somebody say, well, that's my truth, or it's the truth? Like, they're saying it as a matter of fact, right? Their truth is the truth. Oh, Judy, I want to get Jim started. That's the whole point of this talk show. But did you ever hear somebody say that? What they really mean is that's their opinion. When somebody says that, I kind of chuckle because it's impossible. It's like, did you ever... Okay. If you ever heard about, say, I don't know, let's use a car accident, for example, right? You have, say, 5 witnesses. Now, out of those 5 witnesses, everybody is giving a matter-of-fact statement. Nope, this is the truth. This is what happened. I seen it with my own 2 eyes. Here's how it really happened. Then the 3rd, then the 4th, so on and so forth. However, they all can't be right. So that person can think it's their truth. That person can think it's their truth, right? However, there can only be one truth. Now, let's just say that out of those 5 witnesses, there happened to be a street camera that caught everything. All sides, all around, start to finish, blah, blah. And all of these 5 witnesses who professed to say, this is what happened, I seen it, I witnessed it. No, you're wrong, that didn't happen. Okay? When people say or claim that it to be the truth, their truth, what they're really telling you is that's their opinion on something. It can't be the truth. There is only one truth, the way something is and or the way something actually happened. It's like that in life. But people deceive themselves. They manipulate their brain and try to convince themselves that they're right. But at the end of the day, you're not. I'm sorry to say, I hate to be the bad guy to tell you this, but there's only one truth. You can have an opinion about something, but it doesn't mean that it's the truth. It just means that that's your opinion. You may think it's the truth, and you can continue to lie to yourself, but I'm sorry, it's not. There's only one truth to everything. If it's your opinion, how can it be wrong? Well, see, there you go, Jim. Now you're getting theoretical on me here. Oh, Wanda, you're taking off. Okay, hugs. I got you. Wanda, you have a great night. Hugs back to you, my dear friend. And I hope you do sleep well. Yeah, Jim's getting theoretical. All right, so Jim says, now, Jim, are you asking or telling me? Because I got to be very certain as to how you want this or how you want me to reply. Because if you're making a statement, that makes me have a different reply. But if you're asking, then I'm going to have a different reply to you. So if it is your opinion, how can it be wrong? Now, if you're asking me, I'll give you the answer. But my answer, my opinion. If you're making a statement, I'll give you a different answer, different opinion. But either way, I can answer that for you. Just a statement. Gotcha. Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to clarify. So if somebody says, in Jim's case, right, if it's your opinion, how can it be wrong? Now, it's a good argument. Because if it's somebody's opinion, if you feel that you're right, how can you be wrong? You know how sometimes, if you guys ever heard me say, I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong? Okay? People scratch their heads to that. Well, you're just saying that you're right all the time. No, I'm not. Listen to what I just said. I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. So, your opinion is right to you, Jim, yes, but not necessarily right overall. Okay, so what Jim is saying is that if somebody feels that their opinion is right, or in their opinion, right, does that make them wrong if it's their opinion? Okay, well, here's a simple answer, and here's how I want to reply to that. I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. So if anyone listens to the way I talk, to what I say, and how I say it, you're going to hear one definite thing. Unless I know something to be factual, proven, for instance, the sun gives off heat. Is that my opinion? No, that's a fact. Okay? But let's just say the sky, it's a tint of gray today. Now, am I wrong, Jim, or am I right? Because the guy next to me can say, no, I think it's more bluish than it is a tint of gray. Is he wrong, or is he right? I'm trying to stump you up here, Jim. You following along with me? What it should say, or how you should say it, and again, you don't have to be this correct. It's a conversation, right? But to get to the nitty-gritty on this, right? To get really, if you want to get really methodical here, deep thinking like I do, I'll break it down for you. Very simple. I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. Here's the way to prove my point. What I'm saying is, I think the sky is a tint gray today. Well, guess what? If they took out a weather meter or a color chart or whatever, right? I don't know, I'm throwing it out there. And they read whatever color it was, okay? This is all fictitious, I'm just saying. and it happened to be a tint of gray, guess what? I'm right. But let's just say that color reader said, nope, it's a tint of blue. Guess what? I'm not wrong. So I wasn't wrong, Jim, but I'm not always right, but I'm not always wrong. Yeah. So Connie, that's my point. Is now again, general talk, right? Average conversation. Nobody's going to get that theocratical on people. But my point is that when I have conversations with somebody, especially if it's something of deep meaning or importance, when you matter of fact something, that's what I was saying earlier, when somebody says, this is the truth, this is a fact, then you can be wrong. But if I say, well, I think, or I believe, or this is my opinion, or I'm not sure, I'm not wrong, and I'm not saying that I'm right. So if it comes back to be the opposite of what I think, not what I'm stating to be factual, then it doesn't put me in either category. If it comes back to where what I said I think it could be, and it's right, okay, then I'm right. But if it comes back to be the opposite of that, I can't be wrong because I didn't state it to be a fact. That's the difference. And all that takes when I have a conversation with somebody is I don't matter of fact things. Unless, again, like I said, I can prove it. Like the sun gives off heat. You're going to call me a liar? Okay. Go outside in 100 degrees and tell me it's freezing. I mean, that's the point of it. So when having conversation, and this goes back to when you think about it, anger, right? How people get upset and angry, whether it's through marriage, friendship, family, whatever. You can even apply that to that. A lot of times people are so quick to get angry and to get upset at each other because they got a matter of fact everything. Everybody has to be right, right? And so when everybody has to be right, I'm just throwing it out there in conversation. If everybody has to be right, then who gets to be wrong? Well, nobody. Well, then it leads you to that other argument. Not everybody can be right. See my point? So when you have that type of a conversation where everybody's right, then that's how people get angry. That's where the argument starts. That's where big disagreements come in. But what if you had a conversation where it's just a matter of opinion and thought? That is a whole type of different discussion versus somebody saying it's a matter of fact. And you're saying, no, mine is a matter of fact. That's the difference that I'm trying to say. And I know it's kind of deep thinking in there, and not everybody uses that type of logic when they're just having a general conversation. I mean, who would, right? Because if you're certain of something, or you feel as if you're certain of something, then you say it with conviction, right? And that's why I said just use the analogy of a car accident. You have 5 witnesses. They all can't be right, but yet they all can't be wrong. But you have one eye in the sky, that being the camera, that has the exact truth, the matter of fact to it. And so that's why I'm saying when I have meaningful or serious discussions with somebody, I do that. So that this way here, and it does several things too, right? Is that you're not putting somebody else in a defensive position where they have to feel as if they have to defend their thoughts or they have to defend their opinions, right? Connie says most things are in that category that you think something is true, because with many things there is not enough information to be absolutely certain. Connie, yeah, okay, all right, Connie's getting on that deep thinking thought with me here. All right, see that, Jim? It's not just us. So let me read what Connie just wrote again. This is interesting. Most things are in that category. Separate that. That you think something is true. So this is you, your opinion, thinking that something is true based off of your thought or based off of what you think you know. And she goes on to say, because with many, many things, there is not enough information to be absolutely certain. So, Connie, you're 100% right. But that's why, even if you are saying something that there's not enough information and you can't base it off of actual fact, right, or absolution, then that's why all the more when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I don't have enough information or I don't know enough, or there's just not enough evidence to provide that factual information that I need, then how can I say with positivity that I'm right, or that it's a fact, or this is true? See, that's the whole point. And that's what creates a lot of disagreement with people. And from there stems argument. It goes on and on and on. Jim says, that is why all of us friends are here, to having a couple hours of good conversation no matter what the subject matter is. You're right, Jim. That's why I love doing this podcast. Now, I said it before, whether one person watches, listens, joins chat, or whatever, that to me is irrelevant. I could sit here, Jim, for 3 hours and just throw up information, give my opinion on things, discuss meaningful things that I think are important. But at the end of the day, it's my opinion and my thoughts, right? And if one person happens to listen to it and they benefit from it, and they may not agree with me, and that's fine. But maybe there's something that I said that they said, you know what, I never thought about it that way. And so something I said may lead them to go in a different direction and find an answer to something that they were having a trouble or a hard time with, right? And that's what having open discussions is all about, or meaningful conversations. Here's the other cool thing. All right, it says, listen respectfully. After you express yourself, allow, it's using spouse here. Again, not a marriage counselor, guys. Allow your spouse to respond. Now, I'm going to rephrase that. I'm actually going to take out spouse. I'm going to put allow your friend to respond without interruption. When your friend is finished speaking, paraphrase what was said to see if you understood it correctly. Now, I've done that. I have done that so many times, and I have been guilty of it. To this day, I'm still guilty of it, right? I mean, I walk, talk, I breathe, I bleed. But has that ever happened? Okay, whether it's your friend, husband, wife, whatever, somebody says something and you go, huh? Right? But then you turn around and you think you heard what they just said, but then you give them an answer that they're looking at you like, what? And so their reply to you is basically sarcastic because you just answered them as like the question they asked you wasn't even relevant. Right? Your answer wasn't even relevant to what they just asked you. It wasn't even tied together. So that's actually a good point. Paraphrase. It's kind of like, okay, Wanda, when she went up and ordered that cheeseburger, they may have paraphrased that. Oh, she wanted cheeseburger, no pickles, no onions, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Then had Wanda replied back and said, yes. Okay, so they just repeated back, basically paraphrasing what she just said to make sure that what they heard is correct, right? No brainer. It's kind of the same thing when you're talking to people, though, right? You don't have to do it all the time, but if you didn't hear them the first time, or you think you did, that's some really sound advice right there. Yeah, I like that. And especially if people, whether it's your friend or anybody else, relationship-wise, right? Especially if they do get angry like that. You know, if you know that triggers somebody, and they think that you're ignoring them or you're just not paying attention to them. Like, hey, you listening to me? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, what did I just say? Well, now you look stupid. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, right? You know, but a lot of times, though, I'll be doing something. My wife will come downstairs and she'll just walk in the office and just start talking to me. And I'm focused on what I'm doing. And I'm like, what? She goes, you didn't hear what I just said? I'm like, well, I heard you, but I didn't hear what you said. Oh, never mind. Well, get my attention first, right? So it works both ways, kind of. I think, you know, I don't know, I think a lot of people, we all have stuff that we have to, you know, work on, I think. But that's really cool stuff. I mean, again, it's common sense. Yeah, Judy, you're right. Judy says that is how arguments get heated. She's absolutely right. I think a lot of times, though, I've ran into people where no matter what I said, no matter my tone, no matter how I responded, no matter what I did, unless I agreed with their way of thinking, their thought process, lined up with their viewpoints, right? They wanted really nothing to do with it. They didn't want any part of the conversation. It's almost as if, like, I didn't agree with them, and because I didn't, the conversation's done. It's dead in the water. Therefore, you're wasting your breath at that point. Why aggravate yourself and get upset and trying to convince somebody of something? Basically trying to have a conversation with somebody when the only thing that they want is the accolades. They want their ego to be stroked, and they want you to agree to whatever their opinion or thought is. And guess what, guys? It ain't gonna happen. So if you're out there listening, and if you are one of those people, you know, just maybe do exactly what I just said. And don't go off me, right? But just kind of break it down to common sense, you know? Maybe sometimes your thought process, your opinion, it may not be factual. And not everybody has to agree with you. And you could be, guess what, 100% right. Doesn't matter. Somebody else may disagree because in their mind that doesn't make sense, or your line of thinking is wrong. Doesn't matter. That's why we all have opinions. We all have our own thoughts, our own feelings. And to get mad at somebody because their thinking doesn't align with yours, if you get mad at somebody for that, then you really got to ask yourself, who's being the ass? Because their opinion differs? Yeah. I don't know. Jim says Judy is great at listening and waiting till they finish. Jim says, me, not so much. I lose train of thought too easily. But see, that's good, though, because you have that balance, Jim. You do. You have that balance, and that's what's good. And especially if you guys are together. You have one that's more of, okay, I'm going to wait, laid back, patient, understanding. Or you may have a situation where Judy may be reserved, right? And Jim, you not so much. You just want to cut that off and jump in and then get your opinion heard. And sometimes that may be a thing that's needed, depending on the subject or depending on where the conversation is going. If the conversation is going to a direction where you feel uncomfortable with, then that's where that patience doesn't work out so well, right? And the listening part doesn't work out so well. Now you need to nip it in the bud, and that's when Jim comes in and says, okay, boom, you know. So it works hand in hand. It's just, sometimes I think the difficulty comes in where, and it does, it takes work, it takes effort, I think, to develop how to kind of work the field, right? How to balance everything. You have to, I think, be a great communicator. number one. Number two, I think that you have to be open-minded, but to a point, not too open-minded, but not too close-minded. And then I also think that most importantly, you have to really be a great listener, but don't over-listen to the point where it's exhausting you. And what I mean by that is I always encourage for people to talk and express themselves. But when it overexhausts you, depending on what that person is venting about, let them vent. Let them get it off their chest, because they're releasing some toxic stuff that they have to get off. That's fine. But it depends, right, on how far you want to let that exhaust you. If what they're discussing or just venting about, if it's bothering you to the point where it may be an uncomfortable thing that they're talking about, you may not like it. It may, make you sick and angry. And so there's only so much you can really listen to. And you can politely either stray them away from that, right? Kind of get them on a different subject, or politely exit yourself from that conversation. And it doesn't mean that you're being rude. It just means if by you listening to somebody at a certain point when it starts exhausting you, you have to kindly remove yourself away. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not ignorant. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that for your benefit, you're removed, and for their benefit, because they could say something that really puts you in a very uncomfortable situation, and then in turn, you could turn around and reply with something that's not so well meant, right? So it works both ways, I think. Judy says, but Jim, it's your pain that is why you have less patience. That could be true, Judy. Yep, if people are in physical pain, Jim, I can relate to that. My back pain is just excruciating. That's definitely relatable. Jim says, it's not about patience. It's, I have a thought on my mind, and if he doesn't let it out soon, he will lose the thought. It's either to do with ADHD or pain, not sure, but Jim is a good listener overall. And I've spoken with Jim, and again, it's different. I don't have, obviously, the same relationship. I don't live with Jim day in and day out. Judy, same thing, right? But I think there's two good points made, in my opinion. One, I can personally agree with in regards to pain, and I understand what Judy's saying about that 100%, because my wife, she has RA and fibro, Jim, and so that triggers a lot of her anger, like her impatience. She's not as a patient person as I am, okay? And I handle and deal with my pain much differently than she does, but her pain is a different pain than mine, right? We all have ailments, but some handle it differently. Some have different pain aspects to them. So I can see that too. And I can also see too that, Jim says he has something on his mind if he doesn't let it out soon. That's tough too, Jim, right? Because even I will be the first to say that when somebody says something, as much as I can preach on what I think works or stuff that I read, whether it's scriptural based or not or whatever, that I think is really solid, it doesn't mean I can always apply it to myself. I try to use it, but it doesn't always work out sometimes, because there's been situations where somebody has said something that I can't, I have to just stop them and say it and rebut what they're saying, because whatever it is they're saying triggered a reaction from me, a quick response to kind of shut them down, right? It's almost, it's instinctual. It's like I have to do it. It's like a fly buzzing around me and I got to swat it, and that's tough. That's a hard thing to do. Especially when you know what they're saying is just total BS, or it's drama, or it's just crap, right? At the end of the day, it's crap, let's be honest. So that's tough. But what I find helps me is I will stop myself, right? Even if I get something out spontaneously, if I react to something somebody just said, then what I do is I remind myself, okay, I'm going to listen to them. And then I'll let it go a little bit longer, and then I'll interject. Because I think that there's enough time to let somebody say something, and then you can interject. But again, that's just me. That's how I do it, and it works for me. Not all the time, but it usually works for me. Connie, you have a good night. No. Never be sorry to say good night. I understand. It is getting late. Let's see, what time is it? What time I start this thing? 9:30? 9:30? Yeah, it's 10:30, 11:30. Yeah, it's understandable. It's 11:30. I don't blame anybody for signing off and going to bed, guys. I really don't. Absolutely not. It is late. Hence, that's why it's called Late Night with Denny Cool. But I love doing it. And, Jim is in pain 24/7. Yeah, most people are who have a chronic pain or something that's an injury that was and it could have been something years ago, right? And unfortunately, it is a 24/7 thing. I don't know. For me, the lower back pain is tough because as mentally, you can call it thick-headed, I guess, stubborn or strong-willed as I try to be, pain is real, right? And a lot of people say, and when I refer to a lot of people say, I'm talking about people who really study the mind, study pain. They've learned how to block it or to accept it, and how to transfer it into different ways. Now, that's way higher than my level at this point. However, I will say this, that pain, for some, they can handle, they can deal with it. Pain for others, again, not so much. And it depends on the pain. It depends on the tolerance level that one person can handle. It doesn't mean that somebody's weaker than the other person. You can have two of the same injuries on two different people, but one can affect somebody else differently. And that's what always cracks me up. If somebody says, oh, you have lower back problems. Yeah, I do. Oh, well, I have back problems. Okay, well, great. Good for you. Yeah. You probably ride a bicycle with no seat. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? You're a hero. Congratulations. I don't want to tell you. My lower back pain is different than your lower back pain. I have a crooked spine. I mean, a lot of different things going on, pal. But that's what I'm saying. It's you got to kind of look at stuff like that and just laugh it off, But having pain 24/7 is definitely uncomfortable. A lot of times during the show, Friday nights, Jim, I'll be sitting here, and then when a song plays, I got to get up. I got to stretch my back. I got to move around. But again, sometimes it's my own ignorance because I literally have an inversion table sitting right in the other room that I could lay upside down for half an hour on. And that literally just pops everything. It doesn't cure it, but it definitely helps. Jim says, what I was getting at, if you are talking and you say something that I would like to participate in, if I wait too long, then I forget what I wanted to say. Yes. Nope, absolutely right. Absolutely right, Jim. I can relate to that. Yeah, so a lot of times you have to feel as if when somebody says something and then it triggers a thought in your head and you're like, oh, hey, I have a point, or I have a thought on what that person just said, and it's probably a really awesome one. So you hurry up and you want to interject before you lose that thought, right? Before you lose that point, is what you're saying? Yeah, I definitely get that, because I've done that where you're like, oh, man, I just had a... And then by the time you start thinking about your point, the conversation, the topic has changed. So it's no longer valid anymore. It becomes a mute thing. So you're just like, man, I had a really good point, but I just lost it because you were waiting for them to get done their point. Thus, you lost your point. So I see what you're saying. Judy says it breaks her heart to see him breaking down. Of course it does, Judy. Yeah. I mean, he's your husband. You love him. Of course it breaks your heart. Absolutely. And you want one of those tables? Yeah, I'll tell you what. That was actually gifted to me. I had one years ago, and I gave it away like an idiot. Well, we were moving at the time, moving back into the house. The house was rebuilt after the fire. And I didn't think I needed it. I was feeling froggy. Because years ago, I was on disability for several years. And every doctor I went to, they just, nope, nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with you, and stuff. And then, well, guess what? There was. And so I finally, and back then, it was bad, because I wasn't taking anything. Nobody would just give you all, pain medicine and stuff. And if you went to the hospital, they may give you a couple pain pills or whatever it was to shut you up for 5 days or whatever, but then you had to keep doing it. And I'm like, you know what? This is not a way to live. So then I found a pain clinic, a really good one, I'm still with to this day, where he did some things to my back and all that stuff, then put me on some really good pain regimen and stuff like that every month I follow through, and that helped. And then that allowed me to go back to the full-time secular work where I was independent and stuff. But because of the type of work I did, it just destroyed my lower back. So now I can't do it all the time like I used to. I could probably go 2 or 3 full solid days of physical hard labor, maybe, right? Now, I can endure it, but here's the problem, though, right? Is when you do that, what you forget is that you're going to pay the price afterwards, and that could hold you up even longer. So you could do more damage, really, and I don't want to have surgeries. They've offered me surgeries, do this. I don't want that. For me, I don't want it. Every time I've had surgery or they've opened me up or done something, I end up worse. And I just refuse to do that, but that's just me. I'm different like that. I'm a weirdo. Yeah, but I definitely agree with that. Jim says, I always tell people there's always someone worse off than me. If I am upright, what more can I ask for? There you go, brother. Thankfulness, gratefulness, appreciative. That's what it's all about. I absolutely agree with you, Jim. I do 100%. Here's a really cool thing I want to touch back on. But before I do that, guys, we're going to take a pause for a good cause and play this quick commercial break by our sponsor, none other than, well, it's our only one we have. Well, we got 2 of them, but here's one of them. is, for those that are watching or will be, I had to take the headphones off, man. They were just chopping at my ears. That is our show, and the reason I made that commercial actually was because I've been reaching out to music therapists and influencers and teachers and stuff. I really want to get their perspective, and I'd love to have an interview with, say, like a music therapist. You know, they actually use music to help people with Alzheimer's, autism, dementia, all that stuff. Music is just such a great tool. It really, really is. And I think that's why, like, our shows just make everybody feel so good too, because you're there for the music, but you're also there also for the growth and the inspiration from others. But yeah, hey, by the way, John did the duet version of the Petals and Thorns, that song that I wrote. I checked for some reason. He says that SingSnap may take like up to 24 hours or something, a day or two for it to finally upload. But when I checked it, the duet version, it doesn't let me select singer 1 or singer 2. It stays on the screen, but the alternate rock version is up there. He sent it to Kevin, I believe. I hope Kevin records that. I'd love to hear his version on that. But here's what's really cool too, is earlier I was talking about, oh, it is working? You did try it? Okay. I'm going to have to try it, Judy. It might be my end. I don't know. For all those that don't know what I'm talking about, I wrote and composed a song. It's called Petals and Thorns. And what I did was I did a rock version of it, and I kind of did like a country blues version of it as well. And John converted it to karaoke via, through SingSnap. So anybody can sing it if they chose to, right? Oh, it's working now. There we go. All right. Yep, I just checked it, Judy. It is working. Awesome. Okay, cool. Here's the link for it right here. Oh, you did the female? All right. You know what, Judy? Send me that, because I've been wanting to sing that. You did the female part. You know what? You can put that in the IC or something, or send it to me privately, whatever. Yeah, because I've been wanting to do that. I've written so many songs. I don't think I sang any. I think I did sing one of my own songs I wrote. I'm not sure. But that one in particular, I definitely have to try that one. I liked how that one. Oh, you didn't save it? Okay. All right. But now, is there a vocal guide to it? Because if not, it is on our channel. I did put it up there with the words as well. So if there's not a vocal guide, you can go on DCG. It's under the singer-songwriter playlist, and you can find it there. Well, I made a video that has both the karaoke. It's not like what John does in SingSnap, but the way I did it, it's through AI and it's through one of my programs, but it also has the vocal guide on there as well. Yeah, so that will have the actual vocal guide on it, the actual song, and you can listen to how they both sang it, which is really, really cool. But earlier to what I was alluding to, we talked about it, and then I kind of got on the other subject about anger and stuff, and about letting go, right? Well, this is really cool, because I should read more than what I do. But what I like about doing the podcast too is what it does for me is it forces me to study and read more. Because even though I've probably read a lot of this material throughout years, you forget it kind of, right? Again, out of sight, out of mind type of thing. And if you're not consistently learning, and if you're not constantly reminding yourself of things, then you tend to forget it, or you don't use it as practice throughout your life. But this is what I find interesting, right? How to let go of resentment and the challenge. It says you cannot forget the bad things. And again, this is referring to a spouse. So I'm going to take this out of there. I'll just use it and replace it with, you cannot forget the bad things someone has said or done. The harsh words and thoughtlessness acts are indelibly etched in your memory. But as a result, the affection you once had has been replaced by resentment. Now, I did state that earlier. But you have no choice. It seems to endure a loveless relationship, you resent your friend or person for that too, right? Yes. So be assured that things can improve. First, though, consider a few facts about resentment. Now, this is interesting. Again, it's things that are there, but we probably don't think about, or... So, Judy, you have a hard time forgetting. You know, and I'm not saying this to be biased by sexism, I'm not, but I find, just from my experience, women, for some reason, not all, but I find that women, for some reason, hey, I'm sliding over here, have a harder time letting go than men. I find that men seem to be more forgiving, at least in my experience. Women, they like, I don't know what it is, man. It's like a magnet to them. They've got to hold on, right? It's like, you did them wrong, man, you're done, that's it. Like, they will write you off, or it takes 100 years to get back in their good graces. I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I'm saying it as, from my experience, that's what I find. I could be wrong. Judy, you keep it in a file in your mind and can pull it out on a day. Yeah, okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. If anybody out there is watching and can relate to this, man, either join the chat, jump in and chime, or, I don't know, send an email or something. But, Judy, what you just said, I say this to my wife. I said, you know, you're getting angry about something, and it could be anything, that happened 10 years ago. She goes, yeah, but I never got any resolve to it. I'm like, yeah, but you think you didn't. Maybe that resolution wasn't what you wanted, right? So because it wasn't a total or complete satisfaction, it's still being held in that vault, right? And that's tough. Jim says it's hereditary because he believes women remember because they have so much that they do. I mean, that it's not an invalid point, Jim. I can see what you're saying, but then the argument to that someone else could make, right, to your point, is that, well, who's to say that men don't have so much to do either, right? So it's kind of like tossing salad here. You know, well, you're saying, Jim, that in the past, men tended to the farm and women tended to the home way back when. Sure, absolutely. But now, not so much the case, right? You kind of have a trade-off, or both, meaning both the woman and the man are working, or sometimes the man has to as opposed to the woman can't, or the woman has to as opposed to the man can't, right? I mean, either or, it doesn't matter. You're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, right? So you're there, you're in it together, you're supporting each other. So that's irrelevant. What is relevant, though, is, I don't know, for me, Jim, I think that both are kind of equal to each other. What I mean by that is, if throughout the engagement of, say, whether it be a marriage or friendship, whatever, both have kind of equal parts, right? Or let's just say in a good scenario, both have equal parts. Then if that's the case, then I guess the argument would be what defines one to doing more versus the other, right? Yeah, exactly. It should be equal, but that's my whole point, though. So then what would really be the definition of a woman has much more that they do versus what the guy does, right? So I think that some would probably create an argument for that. But again, I don't know. I know that from my experience, that it's women, they just I don't know, man, they just don't let go. You know, it's kind of like mine, like a pit bull. I have pit bulls. Well, I have one now. But if they get angry, they bite onto you. They're not letting go, man. You're losing an arm. Well, you're losing something, bro. Right? And it's not putting down women by any means. I'm not. It's just a fact from my experience. It becomes a fact for me, not for everybody else. But here's what's funny. It says resentment can destroy marriage, friendship, relationship. Why? Because it undermines the very qualities upon which a relationship or marriage, friendship should be built, including love, trust, and loyalty. In a sense, then resentment is not the result of a marital problem. It is a marital problem. So it's not the result of a marital problem. It is a marital problem. Does that make any sense? It's not the result of it, but it is. So for good reason, the scriptures say that put away from yourselves every kind of malicious bitterness. If you harbor resentment, right, you are hurting yourself. I talked about that earlier. If you put it into perspective, say a friendship or something, right? At least that friend, maybe you don't live with them or something, but you know, or whoever, you're not living with them and sharing intimate moments of your life with them every day. So it kind of is a little bit different as opposed to your marriage mate, right? But it says you're hurting yourself. Harboring resentment is like slapping yourself and then expecting the other person to feel the pain. That is so true, because I said that earlier, that the only person you're really hurting is yourself. You're not hurting the other person. Now, in a marriage, it's probably different, because if you're holding that resentment, that anger, and you're harboring that, then effectively it does damage to the other person. But the family member who is the focus of your resentment may be feeling just fine. I said that earlier. They're going to sleep at night. You're not, because you're harboring it. So enjoying life and perhaps not at all troubled by any of this. Now, this is written by Mark Sichel, and in his book, Healing from Family Rifts. So I'm assuming this guy's either like a counselor or a therapist or something. I'm not familiar with his name, but he did write a book called Healing from Family Rifts. The bottom line, resentment hurts you far more than the person you resent. That's according to this guy. I'm assuming he's some type of a doctor. Judy says, yes, it is true, Denny. Poor Jim. Jim, I believe the brain is more active, which is a good thing. The brain is very active. But here's the thing. I'm a big believer on choice. Now, you can make the right choice or you can make the wrong choice. But when it comes to resentment, that is a choice. Whether you agree with it or not, it's been proven scientifically that that is a choice. Now, some may have a more difficult time accepting that to be a choice, but it's a choice. You get up and you walk across the street. That's a choice. right? You don't have to, but you did it. Some people might doubt that, though. They would say, my spouse made me resentful. Do you ever hear that? Not you guys personally. I'm just saying in general. My spouse made me resentful. So rather than what I'm going to gather before I even read this, again, I haven't read any of this, guys. This is the first time I'm reading it with you. But I'm going to gather that instead of accepting where fault may lie, that is you or whoever, that what you automatically do is because of that, you're automatically blaming that person for your resentment. The problem is such thinking puts the emphasis on something that cannot be controlled. The actions of another person. That totally makes sense. The Bible offers an alternative. It says, let each one, again, you can take scripture out of this. I mean, this is just common sense based stuff that we don't think of, but I'm using this as an example because it's just so pure and it makes so much sense, and it's practical, guys. It's not preachy, it's not religion, it's practical. It says, let each one examine his own actions. You can find that Galatians 6:4. We cannot control what someone else says or does. I spoke about this last time. I said, control what you can and don't worry about what you can't. Meaning you can't go around stressing and worrying about what you can't control. If you have no control over something, why are you going to worry about it? You can't control what others do, say, or feel, right? But we can control, though, how we react to it. So resentment is not the only option. So that's good, because what that should tell us, right, is that when somebody says, well, resentment isn't a choice, it's my spouse or my friend or something, they made me resentful. No, they didn't make you resentful. That's you just lying to yourself and telling you that they made you resentful because you don't want to accept the reality that that's a choice that you want to be resentful. That's just the easy way to saying, you know, I don't want another choice. This is how I'm going to deal with it. And, you know, that's it, right? But that's not true. You can control how you react to it. You may not be able to control how you feel. That's not what it's saying. It's not saying that resentment is a feeling of, it's a choice of how you feel. It's saying resentment, to hold resentment, is a choice. That's a difference. So how you feel, it may hurt from what somebody does or says. It'll upset you, anger you. You can't control an emotion, right? But how you react to it makes the difference. Action, reaction. Judy says, I have a hard time shutting my brain off when I get worked up. If I'm calm... worked up. If I am calm, of course my brain lets me sleep better. Well, Judy, you just brought up my next point. What can you do? So this is what I find intriguing. I talked about the subconscious, which I know several wanted me to get into and talk about the subconscious and the conscience, which I love. I mean, it's just so, it goes deep. But I'd literally have to do a whole show just on that, and you still wouldn't even scratch the surface, right? Because it's so powerful. Take responsibility. This is the part I think, myself included, where we are programmed to kind of, we take responsibility, but when it comes to owning up to it, nobody likes to. And I think that it's hard for anybody to admit when we're wrong, made a mistake, right? Even though we know we did, especially when it's a trivial thing where it's, it could be marriage or your best friend or something, but you feel as if even though you may have reacted wrong, but you're so convicted in how you feel and trying to prove your point that you just kind of dismiss that, right? But take responsibility for your resentment. Granted, it's easy to blame your friend, your spouse, whoever, but remember that resentment is a choice. Again, it's not saying that feeling is a choice. It's saying resentment is a choice. Resentment is an action. Feeling isn't an action. Feeling is an emotion. Resentment is an action. If you want to break it down, look up and get a dictionary. I don't have to because I know it. So, resentment is an action. So, when somebody has something, or action equals reaction, right? Resentment is not, emotion is not an action. Emotion is something you feel. That's what you feel when somebody does wrong by you, okay? So, if you want to blame other people for resentment, then that's just you kind of deflecting that choice. Because resentment is a choice. So isn't forgiveness. People can choose to forgive, or they can choose not to forgive. You can choose to, if you are a person of faith, scripture-based, you can choose to follow the Bible's admonition or not, right? But here's one good scripture that I think really, whether you have faith or not, this I think is just such a good statement. This is just so grounded. Don't let the sun set while you are still angry. I think that is awesome. That applies, I think, in everyday life. Whether you're married, whether it's with a friend, a family, right? Or even yourself. Maybe you're mad at yourself. You're just pissed off at the world. Don't go to bed angry. You know, I know it's hard. You know, we're all human. And things going on around us, we're all aware of what's going on. Some agree, some don't agree, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is you, your health, how you feel, and if you are married, and if you are in a relationship or family, whatever. It's very important because you're only damaging yourself. And in turn, when you damage yourself, you can't be any good to anybody in a positive way or a good reflection if you yourself aren't, right? So, again, forgiveness gives you an opportunity to approach your either marriage or friendship or family, and it gives you that way to approach your problems with a better mindset. Think about this. Did you ever get into an argument with somebody? I don't care who it is, but you get into an argument with somebody, and right away, both of you are going off, you're yelling at each other, arguing. It could be something so dumb. It could be you cook something wrong or whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you're arguing about something that's really, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant, right? But at the time, you're fired. Your adrenaline's going, their adrenaline's going. And so what happens is you just turn that stupid argument into something bigger. Now that argument becomes bigger. So all you're doing is you're piling crap on crap. So at the end of the day, you argued for an entire hour, and it could have started off by something so simple and irrelevant, when all you had to do is kind of one or the other could have kind of walked away from that conversation, bowed out of it, walk away, get a cooler head. But a few hours later, you come back and you're like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you. That was dumb. Sorry I snapped. And the other person, yeah, I'm sorry too. And now you can work it out because you both have cool heads. And you're not angry like you were, right? That's what it's saying, right? And if you, Wanda said it earlier, that when she typed what she was feeling and stuff earlier in chats, and I said, what I liked about that was the honesty of it. But if you examine yourself honestly, right? And we acknowledge, even Scripture acknowledges that some people are prone to anger, right? And they are disposed to rage. Okay, that you can find in Proverbs 29:22. But if you are one of those people that are prone to anger, you just wired that way, right? Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're wired that way. Ask yourself, am I inclined towards bitterness? How easily am I offended? Do I tend to make issues over, say, minor problems? Maybe that's you. And maybe you're someone who keeps harping on a matter, separates close friends. It can happen in marriages. It can happen in friendships, right? So if you have a tendency towards resentment, ask yourself, could I be more patient with, whether it be a friend, my family, my spouse, right? Could you be more patient with that person? And I think that for a lot of us, that may be hard to do. But I think that if you can do a little and apply patience to just a little bit of it, and instead of resenting, maybe understand. You may not like it, you may not agree with it, but I think that if you can understand it, right, then you have less tendency to have resentment. And then the other thing that I would say too that works for me, again, this is all opinion based here, guys, is that what I try not to do is I try not to react right away. I said it earlier. Sometimes I have to try to understand. I may not agree to what that person's saying. It could be my wife, could be my daughter, it could be anybody. But I have to at least give benefit of the doubt as to why. Because it's kind of like this. I look at it like this. You have two different countries, each of which believe that they're fighting for just and right reasons. And they may have a society that worships in their mind one God or whatever it is, right? Same thing with one country. They may worship that God or whatever. Or it could be the true God, right? Who knows? It could be Jehovah himself, that they both do. But if they do, they wouldn't be in war. My point being is both sides believe that they are fighting or doing for the right reasons. So you have two countries with all these people that are shooting and killing each other, and each one of those people pulling that trigger think that the other person's the enemy. And they're killing those other people because they are told, right? Just like we are told subconsciously, they are told that they're doing it for the right reasons. But they don't know what that other person could have the same beliefs, same family dynamics as the other person. And the point being is that when two people, whether it's in marriage or friendship or other, they both believe that their points are righteous, and they both believe that they should be vindicated based off of their beliefs and their opinions. So rather than trying to understand one another, they go at it, they fight, they argue, right? And it gets nothing resolved. And that's the whole point of it, is that just because you feel like you're right, just because you feel like, your opinion matters more, or that their opinion is less, and, what you're feeling is more important than what they're feeling, well, that's how you're feeling. That's you. But if you put yourself in their situation, and if you could actually feel what this person is feeling, you might feel like shit. And you might say to yourself, wow, I didn't know you were feeling like that. I mean, you told me, but I didn't know it. You see the difference? That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that a lot of the stuff that I talked about tonight, it really comes down to just really reflecting on who you are. We all have, weaknesses, right? We all have down times. We all have bad moments. We can all act like jackasses, right? We can all have fits of anger, rage, resentment, right? How we react to certain things. And if we're a person, like I said earlier, that's prone to that, maybe it is good to kind of step back, and if it helps, maybe write things down that you would like to improve on. And doesn't have to be done right away. You know, you can work at it little by little. But I think, honestly, that being open-minded to what somebody else is going through and trying to understand where they're coming from really can help you if you are prone to that and you have a hard time of letting go and you have a hard time to forgive somebody. I think that if you can take a little bit of time, and it doesn't have to be for them, but do it for yourself. If you can take a little time to reflect on what it is that you can try to do a little bit better, whether that's having some more patience, maybe trying to understand why he or she did or said that. Maybe you think that you're hearing what they're saying, but you're really not, because you're quick to judge, right? You're quick, your fuse is quick, and you instantly want to judge, and then you block every explanation out. So every reasonable thought, every reasonable feeling, you block it out, you dismiss it, because now they did you wrong, and everything they say and do from this point forward sounds like an excuse, and it's unjustifiable in your eyes. And then 10 years later, you bring it up again. So you just reopened up a wound that that person thought was done and over with. You're absolutely right, Jim. Compassion, empathy, and common sense, it all helps. It does. And that's the hard thing, though, Jim, is there are people who truly have compassion. They truly have empathy. They have deep emotion for other people, right? But it doesn't mean that they can let go. It doesn't mean that they can forgive. They harbor resentment, right? Like they it's hard for them. And that doesn't make somebody a bad person, in my opinion. No, it makes them imperfect. It makes them human. And it just means that they're flawed like everybody else, but that just happens to be their flaw, right? Where they hold on to resentment. And so to understand the meaning of forgive, if you look, and you can look this up in the dictionary, you can look up in scriptures, the word forgive is sometimes translated, okay, from an original language word that would suggest the idea of letting go of something. So to forgive would mean, in translation, of letting go of something. Now, whether that's a physical object, all right, but it means, by definition, letting go. Therefore, to forgive does not require that you minimize, that's the other thing. People will tell themselves that if they forgive somebody, that the action against them or the wrong against them means that they're just ignoring it, and that what that person just did to them, that's not important. No, it's not what it's saying. It doesn't mean that forgiveness requires you to minimize the offense, right? Or act as if it never occurred. It could mean that you simply let it go. Realize that the resentment can do more damage to your health, your relationship, than the offense itself, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Judy, you're right. Judy says people can do her wrong, but over time, she says, I let go and forgive, welcome them back into my life for the most part. Yeah, and that's, that's really what it is. It's it's hard, and I understand it. It takes longer for some people, Judy. Not everybody can do it. It's again, it's like somebody having an addiction, right? For somebody who doesn't, they don't understand why or how that person just can't walk away and let it go. That addiction, if you want to put it into perspective, kind of liken that to resentment, right? Harboring or not letting go or not forgiving, right? that's like an addiction, right? So what is an addiction? You know, it could be anything, but let's use one of the worst case scenarios. Say it's drugs or alcohol. With that addiction, it's not healthy for you, could damage you, right? So forgiveness is the same way. It's not healthy. Mentally and physically, it can damage you. And so for people who can forgive, like I can forgive very easily. I'll be upset. Longest I think I've been upset is like a week. Truly. And then I don't know. I've always been like that. My wife, it drives her nuts. She forgives. She's getting a lot better with it, you know. But she doesn't understand how I just forgive. You know, somebody did that to you. How can you just forgive them? Because I do. I can. It's easy for me. It doesn't mean that what they did is right, and it doesn't mean that I trust them. That doesn't mean that you're not forgiving them. It just means you're letting go of that wrong that person did to you, and I'm letting go of it because I don't want it affecting my life anymore. I don't want that hatred. I don't want that resentment controlling my emotion, controlling my health, controlling my thought, controlling my sleep. I don't want that. Because it's not affecting them, so why the hell is it going to affect me? And they're the one who did wrong by me, so why am I the one walking around with all of this resentment and anger, and I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't smile, but yet they're the ones that did the damage, and I'm the one suffering from that? That doesn't make a drop of sense. But for those that can't let go, in their mind it does. Because as long as I am right, and as long as I prove my point, and you think you're making them suffer, you're not. You're hurting yourself. You really are. You know, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I think that, in my opinion, a lot of that just comes down to self-awareness, right? It comes down to us trying to reflect on who we are, how we handle things, and fine-tuning some things that we know we can do. It may take us a little time, but I think that if we do a little here, a little there, that I think it really, over time, can help us. And most importantly, it will help if we are in a relationship, you know, again, family, friends, marriage, whatever, you know, and then the more we can learn how to be patient and understand somebody else. And I can tell you this from experience, you know, being short-fused, flying off the handle, judgmental, assuming, it gets you nowhere. You know, you may think it does, and you may think that you're a sucker and that you're being played if you allow somebody to enter into your life again, or God forbid you talk to them again because they did you wrong, that you're a sucker. I hear that all the time. I'm a sucker. Well, you're being an idiot. Okay. But this idiot is not walking around feeling negative and feeling sad for something that somebody else did to me. I'm not going to live like that, you know? So there's a lot of things I think that we all can do little by little for our own benefits, and in turn, if we are with somebody, it benefits them too. And here's the great thing about this, is that when we set action and we do things, and it's not just talking, but when we act and we put our thoughts and our words into action, if your friend, your family, your spouse, your actions will set the example. And when somebody else sees you doing something that is benefiting yourself, but you're doing it in a positive way, you're changing for the positive. Again, it can be little things. It doesn't have to be big strokes. But when you do that, that has a ripple effect. Because whether, again, it's your mate or whoever, they see that. And what does that do? Well, it affects them in a positive way. And then what it tells them is that, maybe there's something I can do to change a little bit. Maybe I can improve a little bit. So you're inspiring somebody, just like our shows, guys, on Friday nights, right? One person sings a song, everybody comments on it. It inspires others. The next thing you know, more people are submitting songs. Why? Because you're encouraging them. So when you do something good like that, something positive, it encourages others to do something positive. So with that being said, Judy, you said, yes, trust is earned to be my friend. I absolutely agree with you. I don't think that friendship should be given away freely, 100%. And then you also say, sorry that we dominated the show, Denny. You're so kind to just listen to us. You are a great listener. Love the podcast. Judy, absolutely no sorries needed. I encourage it, and I appreciate the kind comments. I appreciate you guys interjecting and sharing your thoughts and opinions, right? And that's what this show is all about. This is exactly what I wanted. I really love to listen. I love to hear what others have to say. And a lot of what people type or what they say, whatever, I learn from it too. I really do. Like, it's not just me trying to set a bar. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm no different or better than anybody else, right? But I learn a lot from people too when they say things, and sometimes when somebody says something or they type something or whatever, maybe I was thinking this way, and then when somebody just types something, I read it. I won't say it aloud, but I'll think to myself, that's a good point. Or I may say it's a good point, right? And then I'll think in my head, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? So it helps me. Because, again, your actions are what you guys are putting down on screen via text. So that inspires me. And then I weave in and out of the subject throughout the entire night, even though I'm focused on one main thing, but I'll still weave in and out of the conversation depending on who's typing what. And it's great because I get to learn so much about everybody, but then I also, each time I do this now, I've been learning more about myself. It's been a challenge in a good way for me because I've been forcing myself, Judy, to research and do more studying like I've been wanting to do, and this forces me to do that. So it's a very prominent thing. Judy says, Jim, same here, Professor. Oh, you guys are great. Judy says, tomorrow I will wake up and try to be a better person. But, Judy, get rid of that. She says, no promises. Just so everybody knows who's listening, Jim and Judy are husband and wife. So that's where that little fun banter is back and forth. Just in case, if you're not watching the chats, I'm trying to read them out as they put them in there. But Jim, Judy, he's going to test you on that. But you know what, Judy? I give you credit because, but just delete that right there, Judy. Get rid of that, right? Here's what I'm going to... Judy, I'm going to get matter of fact on you. I'm going to get a matter of fact on you. Tomorrow I will wake up and try to be a better person. No, Judy, you are a good person. You don't have to be a better person, Judy. You are a good person. That's the whole point. Nope, she said. Jim, I wouldn't push that. Did you listen to anything I just said to you? That's too much. But you know what, though? That is awesome. But no, I honestly would say you are a good person. You both are great people, And if I could teach myself what I preach, more or less, You know, I do the same thing. I seriously wake up, okay, and I don't tell myself I'm going to be a better person, Judy. I'll share with you what I tell myself and teach myself subconsciously. Is like when I wake up, I will say to myself aloud, right, today's going to be a great day. Now, I don't know what the day is going to bring, you know, but I'm convinced it's going to be a good day. Now, shit may hit the fan, things will happen, right? And I think to myself, did I just lie to myself? No, I didn't. Because how I handle that day, that is the result of what my good day is going to be. And I think people get confused with that. That when they say, well, you know, I write it down, I write all these affirmations down, I say that it's going to be a great day and this and this and this happens. Well, okay, you may have had things that happened, right? Events that took place, but how you handled it, like I told you guys about my truck, it's literally about my wife's Jeep, my pickup truck, my Tahoe, right? Right in a row, bang, bang, bang. Now, how I handled that resulted how my day ended up. It was still a great day for us. We still went out, despite of the fact that we might not make it home. I would have had to call AAA, but you know what? We didn't let that affect us. We still went inside. We had a good time. I dealt with the situation when we got outside, and it worked out so that, you know, we made it home, didn't stress over it. It sucked, yes, but how I handled it also resulted in how my wife responded to how I handled it. If I would have got pissed off, flipped out, stressed out, guess what would have happened? Action, reaction. She would have reacted to me getting nervous, aggravated, and upset. So rather than do that, I handled it differently, which in turn kept her calm. It kept her positive, right? So by doing that, her reaction back towards me was the same. So we both built each other up. You see how that works? That's what I'm talking about. When you say you're going to have a good day, if things happen, handle it with a positive attitude and a good outlook, and you will have a good day. It may not be the best of situations, but you will still have a good day. Judy, boy, do I have you fooled. Oh, you guys are the best. Well, guys, listen, it is almost that time, man. 3 hours flies by. I can't believe you guys actually listen to me talk for 3 hours. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm only kidding. I enjoy it. I love it. You know what's different about doing this and hosting a Friday night show, right? Is, I mean, Judy, you've hosted it, right? Is that when I do the Friday night show, I mean, a lot of people already know I don't have to really address it. But when I host a Friday night show, it takes so much work mentally because I have to do all the designing, the video, the edits, the recording, all that stuff, right? And then, of course, when you're doing it live and featuring the artist and something happens, whatever, it's live. So there's a lot more prep. This, it's, you know, I just change my scenes in my program, right? I find the material. I don't study it until I'm doing it. So it's benefiting me that way. And then I get to talk. And then I get to read what people are typing. And then I get to respond. But rather than doing it in 30 seconds or less and then moving on, I get to go in depth with things and explain things. That's what I love about it. So it's a stark difference. Judy says, as always, when I spend more time with Professor Denny, I feel so much better and a wee bit smarter. Give me way too much credit, hon. Jim, you are an uplifting person to listen to. Thank you, Jim. And Judy and I are a good judge of character. Well, I appreciate that from both of you. You guys are both kind-hearted people. You both wear your heart in your sleeve. And I could definitely tell that right off the rip. You know, I feel very blessed to have not only you guys in my life and to know you guys the way that I do, but also the others too. You know, I feel I'm not a big believer, Jim, in things happen by chance. You know, I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I know it's a well-believed thing, but I think that things happen for a reason. And I think that if you want to get real methodical, I think that reason is caused by what we do, the actions we take in life. And at the end of the day, if you want to get more technical, it's because of who that person is, your character. It's kind of like, you know, money begets money, if it will, right? Or kindness begets kindness, right? So like-minded people attract other people that are very like-minded. Obviously, similarities, right? Opposites don't necessarily attract. It may be so in a relationship. I don't know. I mean, my wife and I are complete opposites to a point. We both, though, are very kind-hearted people and will help anybody we can. And you two are the same way, right? So I think that for all the members, you guys and everybody, you know, it's the road that you go down in life. You're genuine, you're true-hearted, you're kind people. That will lead you to people that are true and kind and respect others just like you guys do. And that's my point. I don't think things are by chance. I think things happen because of the direction in your life and the type of people that you are. You know, I mean, that's just my opinion. I firmly believe that we go down the road we go down. Number one, it's what we choose to do. But number two, you know, the character, I think, speaks volume of who people are. You know, like a thief is going to hang around with a thief. It's just that simple, right? But you're not going to have an honest person and a thief hanging out together. It usually doesn't work. It just, there's no bond, right? So that's my point. But, guys, Judy, kind hearts gravitate to kind hearts. That they do. And Jim says, give shirt off my back if you need it, but ask for nothing in return. And you both just made my point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And yet, here we are. Here you guys are. So guys, Jim, Judy, awesome. Thank you both so much. Connie, Wander, thank you as well. And for everybody out there listening, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This was a lot of just amazing content, I thought. I didn't get really deep into a lot of things, but I think we kind of highlighted a lot of cool stuff here, right? And I think that there's a lot of good things pointed out, just a lot of common sense things that we kind of take for granted and that we may not think of. So hopefully it inspired somebody, or hopefully it made you, you know, think in a more positive and approach things a little bit differently. I know it did for me, and hopefully it does for you, and you walk away feeling a little bit better than when you came. So with that being said, I will see you guys. Well, Judy, I'll probably talk to you over the weekend at some point as well. So Jim, Judy, I know you guys can see me in real time. Both of you have an awesome night. Love you guys to pieces. And for now, guys, this is Late Night with Denny Cool. It's been an awesome 3 hours. Time flies. Have an awesome night. And, yeah, don't forget. Say what? Only 3 hours to get the point? That's... there you go. There you go. All right, guys. Yeah, please be kind to others. And yeah, be kind to yourself. Have an awesome night.